hit record. All right, this is session 3 of our weekly discussion in John's Apocalypse. Apocalypse, of course, does not mean death and destruction. It means revelation. And so usually when you're looking for a something that is to be revealed or sort of shown or, sort of a mystery, then, you want to know, what are you looking for? What kind of, what exactly are we looking for when we say we're looking for a revelation? I put a quote here from my Uncle Louis. He said, "I'd be completely willing to do whatever God wants me to do if I just knew what that was." I think this expresses pretty well the sentiment that most Christians feel, or most people who have faithfully made an effort to, try to understand a little bit more about what God's plan was for their life, or whatever that might be. But how do we find that or have that revealed? If we ask God, "Lord, what do you want me to do? How can I see what that is?" And of course, what we say in the book of Revelation is that we can hear God's voice now. And especially in Revelation, let me say it this way. It's not on the study guide, but let me say it this way. I kind of thought of it this way. We see, okay, we're studying, say, the Ten Commandments. We're saying, okay, this is what God proclaimed to the Israelites. And so we take this and we believe that for ourselves. Thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal, all those. But we still view that is what God has proclaimed to the Israelites. Same thing with the New Testament. This is what Jesus taught the disciples, or this is what God inspired Paul to tell to these churches. All this, we read it as, okay, this is the declaration that God made 2,000 years ago, and so we should take it and realize what it was saying then, but then also try to apply it to us. Of course, I think that's kind of what we're trying to do here, is kind of do with Revelation what we do with all the other books, and that is say, well, what did it mean for the original readers, and so what can it mean for us as believers? The whole book, not just the first few chapters. Well, if we are seeing, if my understanding of Revelation is what God is saying at the very end of all these revelations of what God has declared in the past, God is saying through the book of Revelation, here is what I am going to declare to you in the future. I'm going to give you like a heaven's perspective of what I'm going to show you as believers in the future. And the thing about that is it's not about something that is seen. And I want to repeat myself by saying I still think that these revelations are meant for really not just for the first generation that heard it, but for every generation since then. It has had an application, but it has an application for us. It has an application for you and I, and it's not just in applying some notion to some world leader or something like that. We'll get into a little bit of that here shortly. But I put the statement here, God's word as God's voice now. Not just God's voice then, but God's voice now. Now, I'm not saying that we don't recognize, even when we see God's voice then, that still speaks to us now. But when we see Revelation as God's voice now to us, we might be able to see, and I said, if we approach Revelation as visionary insights, so that's why we get all these pictures, all these crazy ways of describing things that John has, if we approach the Revelation as visionary insights revealed directly to us, we might or we may begin to see the messages more clearly. And then finally under that question, I said, we're not seeking answers so we can know. We are seeking divine insight to help us navigate this world as believers. We are trying to develop a perpetual process of learning more as we are able to see more. So it's a step by step. You know, we don't know the next step until we do the last step. You know, we don't get there. That's sort of the way I think Revelation works. I think the prophet Isaiah said it's precept after precept and line after line and line after line. That doesn't mean it should be complicated for us, because I believe as God's Word, the book of Revelation is certainly meant for all who can, soak it in or hear it read or read it for themselves. It's not just meant to be understood the way that I understand it. I think it can have a personal application for each one of us, as a matter of fact, just like I pretty much believe about the rest of the Bible. I do believe that about the rest of the Bible. All right, so the second question we'll be discussing here directly is that if we begin to see that the Revelation is written to us, how can we better understand all the visions, all these word pictures, and how can we, and I didn't really write this in here on our study guide, but basically these resources are where I'm going. And I don't want to just kind of come here and regurgitate stuff that I learned from someone else. I hope that you will go as much as you can to these resources. But I do want to I will be hitting some high spots, especially the ones that, like today's, that I think is particularly interesting. One thing that I've heard several times this week in my studying and preparation is nobody's neutral about Revelation. Everybody's got an opinion about Revelation. I mean, nobody's really, they're either they think it's really good, or it's really bad, or it's really important, or it's really confusing, or very few people are neutral about the book of Revelation. And so we hope that we might be able to kind of crack through that and not necessarily look so much to, okay, what do we think that Revelation was saying to them back there that we need to follow, but what is Revelation actually saying to Christ Church right now, today, and to me in particular. And I don't know how to say that that's what we need to do, but I honestly think that's what we need to search for. We have faith, which means we trust God with all the answers. But it's because of our faith that we continue to search harder for more answers. That doesn't show a lack of faith. That shows that we do have faith because we want to search deeper. So, okay. I put a quote here from Mark Twain. I actually did look this up, and this is exactly how he said it. It ain't those parts of the Bible that I can't understand that bother me. It's the parts that I do understand. Revelation is simply a letter written in visionary format, delivered by angels from God to the church. And if we can recognize that, and it's just in all its simplicity, I think we might be able to see more of what God would say to us, and what maybe more of what the wider purpose of the book of Revelation actually is. It's very detailed, and there's so much, and that's what we're going to talk about next. I'll just ask our group now. If any of you go to the grocery store and the total comes up to $6.66, or say you walk into you get a pack of gum or something, Jimmy, you grab something else, usually or not, you just go ahead and pay it. You go ahead and pay it, you don't pay attention to it? Well, that's good, that's good. Cheryl, boy, she'll get a pack of gum every time. There ain't no way. No way. I was asking her about, I think there were a lot of older buildings. I don't know when they were built, but there were buildings built through certain years. Some of them didn't have the floor 13 on them. Is that right, Jimmy? Yeah. And it was sort of a bad luck thing. I think we kind of looked at 666. We had this cultural representation of 666. Of course, everybody kind of sort of knows that this is there's probably been movies made about it and all kinds of stuff, but sort of knows that this is a reference from the Bible. But we have this cultural understanding of it, of being just plain old bad luck. And well, that's the devil, you better watch out, or that's evil, or Friday the 13th, or, it's kind of all fits into the same kind of category. Just watch out for that scary stuff. I'm kind of the way Jimmy is. I always think, well, it's just another number. I mean, it's not really. And I guess I'm going to read the verse from Revelation 13:18. This calls for wisdom. Let the one who has understanding calculate the number of the beast, for it is the number of a man, and his number is 666. That's from Revelation 13 and 18. What we talk about when we talk about the mark of the beast, we talk about whether we understand that there is a prophecy where people will actually have something sort of like, best word I could think of was the stamp of the beast. We've always viewed the mark of the beast kind of like the stamp of the beast, like it's an optional kind of a thing. You can either get it or you can't, and those who get it are in big trouble, and those who don't are also in big trouble because they're not going to be able to buy or sell, and they're not going to be able to eat. So, that's kind of the cultural, or not the cultural understanding. The cultural understanding is bad luck. A lot of times the religious understanding is what I just said, that somewhere along the way, this great leader of some kind will rise up and have people put some sort of a stamp on either on their forehead or on their wrist to identify themselves so that they'll be able to still buy food and feed their family and all that. So, and we ask the question, is this an act that people will be forced to do so that they can eat? And so what we're going to explore today in our discussion is to talk about how this number was very specific. And it tells us right there in the text, it says to calculate the number of the beast. And then it very clearly says that it is the number of a man. And it says, and his number is 666. Now, I don't want to try to, this is kind of me trying to state maybe the obvious in a different way. But what John is actually saying is, this leader that I have been talking about all this time and all these evil things that this political leader will do, in case you don't know who I'm talking about, you have to stop and think about it. It's Nero. That's all he's saying. That's what he's saying. He said, because Nero, Emperor Nero, if you add up the values of that, it adds up to 666. And all John is saying is, and I want to just follow along for just a little bit further with me. All John is saying is that, this crazy leader that I'm talking about, I'm talking about Nero, just in case you wanted to know. So what does that say to us? Does that mean that, there's no beast in our modern times? There's no great political leader that will try to lead people to have some kind of a stamp put on them? Well, think of it this way. Okay, so if I have the mark of something, well, I don't know, let me try to think. I don't know, I have a mark of an old preacher from West Virginia because I'm wearing blue jeans. I wear the mark of this or that or the other. Imagine if actually, when we're talking about this evil beast, this evil political leader or world leader or whatever, imagine if what John is actually saying is this is not something that we're all going to say, okay, well, I'll take it or I won't. Give it to me, stamp my forehead or stamp. Remember, go back to the Old Testament. The reason that they were supposed to wear those scriptures, that was meant to say, I identify, this is my identity. This is who I identify with. And that's what John is saying. There is something on the inside that happens when we worship the world. And there is something on the inside that happens when we actually worship God. And we will have marks that will show that. And that's what I believe that the mark of the beast is. And in contrast, the mark of the Lord is. That we will show the marks of one who actually acknowledges God as God and sees that all the nations, all the rulers of the world, including our own, they're just nations. They're not any bigger than people. They're just human beings. They're not eternal. All human power will fade away. We know that. We've taught that all our lives. We've believed that. But if that's true, then what John is saying to us is, to us in our time, is if you really believe in God, don't worry, it's going to show. It will show. It really will. And so the mark of the beast isn't something that we got to be scared of when we go to the store that we're going to hex ourselves with. But actually, when we look at the mark of the beast, we'll say, yeah, it's tragic that the people who really worship the world are really, all their hope is in the world. Let's put it that way. I don't want to make it sound too pagan or anything. I mean, probably just really genuine, meaning people who put all their hope in the world they will begin to show those marks. And that we, as God's believers, when things get bad, will begin to show the marks of the Lord. And so that's what I think about the mark of the beast. It's maybe not nearly as complicated as we always thought, but at the same time, it's really deep. Because it tells us that what we are inside is going to come out. And, the Bible's always told us that. What is it? Be sure your sin will find you out. Don't whisper around in your house about stuff because it's going to be shouted from the housetop. My mom always said this was in Proverbs, but I've never been able to find it. She always said don't listen at your neighbor's window to hear what he's saying about you, because you might. In other words, you don't want to hear what your neighbor's saying about you, so don't listen. Anyway, but the important thing is that we can, as God's people, hear what God is saying to us. And I encourage you to look at other resources, everyone to look at other resources, to watch things on YouTube if you can. If you want a book recommendation, if you guys think what we need to get, just a basic fundamental understanding Revelation book for us all to look through and stuff, I think that we can certainly do that. But we want this to just be a continuing, ongoing discussion of discovery. as we all try to understand Revelation together. All right, that hits me right at 20 minutes.